All right. Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Degrees of Freedom. This is the 15th episode of season 1, and this is the last episode in the season. Welcome to Degrees of Freedom. My name is Dr. E, and this is a place where we talk about your degrees of freedom through 5 slides in 15 minutes about the note industry. If this is a topic you'd like to learn more about, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to talk today about my final topic, which is my own degrees of freedom, what I've learned throughout the note industry. In particular, we're going to talk about my prior work and my degrees, my investment background, my introduction to notes, my own professional, stake in this space, and then I will tell you how I define my own degrees of freedom. So, sombering as it is, we need to get started. So let's get it going. All right, you should be able to see my screen here, and I always start off with a disclaimer. The disclaimer is pretty simple. The information presented on the Ingram Estates channel is for educational uses and purposes only, as it is not a licensed financial institution, investment advisors, financial strategists. We're not lawyers or CPAs. Ingram Estate is not liable for any losses resulting from any action taken by a viewer based on the information presented or shared on this channel. Ingram Estates cannot promise earnings or returns based on historical reports or achieved by any party or affiliate in connection with the information presented. So, a big hodgepodge here once again of images of my life and my own experiences. So let me just kind of walk through my professional experience ever since I started working. When I started working at the age of 14, I started at a YMCA. In that capacity, I served as a lifeguard trainer, a counselor, a camp counselor, a lifeguard instructor as well. And then I migrated to camp life, working professionally as a water safety and waterfront director, as well as a counselor there. I've always done counseling work and teaching first aid, CPR, AED training to the workplace and the workforce. I worked at Camp Integrity here. That's the camp I actually worked at. That's the actual YMCA I worked at Flushing, Queens. Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. I worked at the American Red Cross and for the American Red Cross doing some life skills training with first aid and CPR for the community. At one point, I was a camelback instructor and did some instruction there. This is a good friend of mine. His name is Anthony. He was a good buddy of mine at Camelback doing snowboarding. Then I got a professional degree and became an educator. And for a decade and change, I was a math educator at Walnut Peck High School. I also coached football, and I coached basketball for a period of time and some swimming as well. And then I got a degree at Wilkes University, my master's in teaching and learning in the 21st century. And then I went further and got a PhD in learning design and technology out of Learning Performance Systems program at Penn State University. That's a terminal degree. All of this to say that I am very familiar with certifications. I'm very familiar with instructional and educational certs and degrees of all type, even getting a terminal degree at a high level and being an internationally requested speaker and presenter for some of the research that I've done around interactive games and underrepresented populations. And so I do that work and continue to do some of that work through a heavy amount of research, especially for the National Science Foundation. And so these traditional degrees and certifications of all types, both in informal and formal spaces, are something that I'm familiar with. Yet, the current place that I find myself is in engaging in finance and engaging in real estate and investing in a way that allows me, I think, a different level of freedom that I will talk about shortly. Okay. that work with underrepresented populations led me to understand that economic gains and power were a means to transform the lives and predicaments of those underserved and underrepresented populations. And so I dug deeply into the Black Business School with Dr. Boyce Watkins in particular, and some others, mentors, and I got coached up, trained up, and learned up, I guess, in how to invest in stocks and bonds. And I did that, and still doing that on my own independently, and pretty decently successful, earning gains of 30, double-digit gains, and even at one point triple-digit gains. But obviously, that's through a bear market. Currently, as it stands, we're sitting at June 17th or 18th, I think it is 18th today, of 2022. The markets are down, right? So we had a crazy bull run. We'll probably see some more of this bear run happening. And finally, I'll get to see both sides of the cycle. But nonetheless, I learned quite a bit in investing in stocks and bonds and understanding calls and puts and things of that nature. I then diversified the portfolio into crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, the like, and pretty heavy in that space to the point where, I understand cold storage. I understand the crypto punks and what they were trying to do. I understand what NFTs are. I'm not engaged in those yet, but I was engaged in the crypto space since 2017 and still continue to engage in it, understand it as a form of money and value exchange, and believe digital currency is a means of new money for the future. So very familiar with the crypto space. I also engage in foreign exchange trading. So I trade on a weekly basis and still engaging in that space. And I've done pre-IPO investing. If you look at Jobs Act, I think 3, or Title 3, I think it's called. You have the ability to invest in pre-IPO investments on a ground level now, and that's written into law. And so there are these exchanges such as WeFunder and Start Engine and many others that load up companies that are compliant with SEC and that can raise pre-IPO funds. And some of them eventually might be listed on the stock exchanges. And so I've been engaging in those type of investments, but I've also gotten into investment clubs where you can invest in companies just like a VC. And so I have been doing that as well. Just recently, I started to get into funds and raising funds and understanding on the back end just how that process works, what that looks like, how to target funds, how to meet your minimums, and become a fiduciary. So working into that space. So this is my investment background. I wouldn't say it's very extensive, but I would say it's diversified. I've been doing it since 2017, which is not a whole lot of time. Other people have generational investment experience. Unlike myself, I've just been doing it for 5 years or so. And I had to diversify the portfolio across these spaces and go pretty deeply, I think, into these spaces so that I could gain a better understanding. The target was to gain a better understanding of how to make money grow, how to make energy grow, how to make investments grow on top of themselves, very much like a farmer, right? So this is my general investment background. So how did I get introduced to notes? And so I started with the handsome young man at the bottom here. His name is Ahmed Hazel. He's got a great book called Profiting from Non-Performing Mortgage Notes, and took his mastermind class and was introduced to him through Jay Morrison's coursework, which I took. He's a fantastic educator as well. And prior to him, did some masterminding work with a brother by the name of Julian Gordon and his multifamily mastermind group. And before that, I'll even go back. My father is an electrician. He's a union electrician with IBEW. He's always been one. So I've been around real estate for some time, and my father-in-law happens to be a contractor, a general contractor, and he's been around it all of his life. And we happen to live in a duplex. So what's interesting is, first of all, I've been living in real estate and around real estate my entire life, and have had married into a family that has been around real estate their entire lives, and even live in a duplex. And so I started with Ahmed with my introduction to notes because as I was introduced to him, it became really natural for me to understand the finance side of the house, because mortgages and having homes was something that we'd always done. So it clicked very well with me. And so then I had the good fortune of meeting the Naked Note podcast through a friend, and learned and dug in deeper with the Note Assistance Program. And that is really where I started to grow and learn and have that mastermind community around the note industry and understanding what it meant to be the bank. And I shout all these people out, and I have these books shown to you because it's important to understand and give attribution to where you come from so that you can understand really a bit deeper what kind of, house you come from, or angle you come from, or stock that's raised you. Because I didn't come to this space by myself. It wasn't about me by myself. It was about the people that are around me. And so these are the people in the books and the individuals that I've been able to connect with and engage with to understand this space and to help guide me and walk me through it. I'm very grateful for that. So you got to show gratitude and respect for those that come before you. That's what I do. So this is my fourth slide, and then I'll get into my nugget. This is my journey. I put it in very plain and simple terms, but the reality is in less than 10 months from starting the Note Assistance Program, it's been a year. It's been a full year since I've been introduced to notes. It's been more than a full year since I've kind of understood where they are and started with them. But really engaging in this space, it's been, from this point right now, about 10 months. And the only reason that I've been able to succeed to the extent that you see to the right is because of that network. All right. And those people that I mentioned before, helping and being a big part of my growth. So let me show you what that looks like. Q4 of 2021. You see that second one there? I had one note. I was able to acquire one note, and the unpaid principal balance is $7,878. Okay, so that is what was owed to me. I owned that amount of debt plus its interest at that moment in time. In Q1 of 2022, that is when I acquired the second note. Okay, I had two notes. And then at that time, my unpaid principal balance that I owned the debt, was at $57,757. Okay, that was owed to me, plus its interest. And then Q2 of this year, 2022, I own three notes with a JV partner. Both the second and the third were with JV Partners, which is a joint venture. I had the good fortune of meeting business partners that shared the same values that I did. And then my personal portfolio grew to $85,542 in unpaid principal balance. And so what that means is that the debt that I owned, that we own, because I have JVs in there collectively and jointly together. And so what we need to do is go through a process to actually extract that value, and that's called exiting the notes, right? Or getting them to reperform. So there are many processes that you would have to go through in order to actually capitalize on those assets. Now, what happened in Q2 is really fascinating. I had the ability to, again, partner, and through the network that I had with the Note Assistance Program, to gain a client. And that client wrote up a contract with me to manage their portfolio. And that portfolio is to the extent of $1.3 million in unpaid principal balance. Okay, and then they had about 32 assets that they have under management. So we total that together, and I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of 32 to 40 assets that I manage. The reason I say that is because we are offloading some of those assets, and I can be off a couple numbers because I'm not sure exactly where they sit at the moment until I communicate with the team. So somewhere in that range. And so somewhere $1.4 million in unpaid principal balance in less than 10 years is not bad. And what is the really cool piece to it is that now I'm doing the actual work of banks. I'm not doing the actual work of asset managers that would manage a portfolio of probably a much larger number than this, but I'm still doing it at a small scale. And so I'm very grateful to my mentors and the people that have helped develop my skill set, Harrison Silverstein and Brenda, and most importantly, the president of the Note Assistance Program, Jasmine Wawa, putting a lot of time and energy into me. And so this is something that's really powerful because now I can actually achieve this, which is how I define my own degrees of freedom. My degrees of freedom are determined by the amount of time I get to spend with my family. If you haven't done so, I would really suggest you look at a 75-year Harvard study. It's called Happiness, I believe. It's the keys to happiness. And what they discovered, in short, is that the amount of time you spend with meaningful relationships are directly correlated to the happiness and fulfillment that people feel in their lives. And so for me, my degrees of freedom are determined by the amount of time that I get to spend with these amazing people, going to the preschool graduation event, seeing my son strike out all three batters in the last inning of a game, teaching my kids how to code and get them engaged in STEM, watching my oldest read to his younger brother and sister, getting some really great shots, watching my son and taking him to his family-owned lake and watching him use his speedboat. Pretty amazing. Going on his field trip with him while he tries to do a mohawk and things of that nature, making every event fully present on the weekends, monthly date nights with my beautiful wife, and building that generational wealth. And then having the ability now, because I've been able to do quite a bit of substantial things in such a short amount of time, people are coming to me saying, hey, look, I've got these deals in projects that I want to talk to you about. This is something that is like beyond me. Usually as an educator, or a professor, I'd build out projects, and maybe other people want to build a project with me in the education space. But now in the finance space, I've got multiple people hitting me up and saying, hey, let's do projects. I got some ideas and some deals that I think that you would be really interested in. So that's the point I'm at now as a professional note investor. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to see what this new chapter will bring. By the end of the summer, I will be transitioning full time and moving on from education. And I am excited to see and engage in the note profession professionally. And I'm excited. And I get the ability to say, no, thank you. And build out my own schedule on my time. So degrees of freedom for me are about owning my time. And now we're going to do that and be able to build a living for myself and my family. So I'm fired up. Listen, if you want to know more about the note industry, you want to engage more with what I'm doing here, I would love to talk to you about it. jason.eestates@eestates.net. And I hope that you're doing well. One family.